Is extremist on the growth? Down there is a wide-held story how we are residing via a period of deterioration intolerant in the UK, in human beings proper more than sarcastic and polarized. He wants study to make a superior informed discussion, regularly map levels of intolerant, looking at how tags such as Islamic extremist can tilt the image and request if down there are some ways of looking at patterns of extremist. For copy, instead of looking at sectarian groups for precautionary signs of extremist, should we inspect links in addictive, intrusive behavior, such as narcotic drug addiction? Should down there be focused to identity types as policy beliefs? The committee, set up in the ramifications of the Manchester scene terrorism assault, has the problem of evaluating the scope of extremist and conclusion ways to gear any supporting for such a abuse. But which is extremist? How does it vary of firmly held, legal beliefs? No sees by themselves as violent extremists. Dr. Hargreaves, an investigator specializing in Britain's Muslim communities, defines it as try to eliminate or compel, but in the distinctive characteristic of creature detrimental. It does not include to be forcible. He gives the sample of several Muslim-sounding who claim on sectarian perspectives versus vote. I would claim house a shape of extremist, says Dr. Hargreaves, relying at the Wolf Institution in Cambridge, a school devoted to house bridges among faiths. Or distant right groups in a bigot communication, they might not be defending abuse, but those messages can readily gas abuse. But he says extremist should not be embarrassed in sectarian fundamentalist, that can be a more than orthodoxy, but legal, express of faith. He wastes the way this to include be replaceable. Down there are all various of human beings who are really lot external the main, but whose view are by largest terminology innocuous, he says. Dr. Hargreaves, in a study backdrop in both of criminal science and religious, says it would be really risky area to accept a prospect in that powerful sectarian view could be seen as violent extremists. He as well says intolerant could occasionally be seen as a favorable strength, such as more intolerant of sexist, racist, or homophobic. But off of the intensive study next such a terrorism attacks, Dr. Hargreaves says the greater image can stay lot less than precise. The tag utilized to explain extremist can as well fully changing the obvious trends. The largest latter figures of the Hinder Resist Terror program in England and Wales, published in December, showed a abrupt drop in referrals above Islamic extremist, downward of 61% to 44% in a solitary year. That could be seen as a considerable breakout versus radicalization. But which very done the distinction was setting lot more than in else class, blended, volatile or not clear philosophy. The reconfiguring intended how at a course Islamic extremist became a minority group of the cases, in 44% of referrals. The volatile and not clear now taken into account for 27%, time 18% associated to order wing extremist and 11% were other, consisting ecological campaigns and the far leftward. The more than nuanced attitude, he says, done volatile the other largest team, and quite rather than a resist terror intervene, he says several might requirement psychological public health services or habitation and occupation consultation. Dr. Hargreaves says down there might be some ways of looking at extremist, as a way of behaving quite rather than a way of religious. That could involve an overlapping in addictions. In a lot of cases the individuals had been called to drug addiction services and had registered problems in SIP or drugs, he says. Down there might be protection in psychological public health problems too much. Paranoiac, psychopathic delusions are not how far remote of types of grievances you frequently listen about human beings in violent extremists' view, says Dr. Hargreaves, portion of the specialist team for the Against Extremism Committee. He says how his deposit is to hold enterprising for more than testimony. Down there will be a examination of levels of toleration, that he says will see at if bigoted behavior are very growing, quite rather than proper more than apparent via public print. He questions the dependability of unelected society leaders who might include their own agendas. Claims on segregationist and superstition, such as in northern towns in England, he argues, might miss the favorable regional protection take location. It's essential not to generalize. The position on the land can be more than complex. Communities are muddling via in how classical UK path, occasionally off of the up-or-down initiatives and politics strategies. He warns versus indicating fingers at special groups, consisting whites, work-class communities. Politics makers would do so to include a slight more than affection for communities, how include subjected changing, he says. The values and beliefs of social prudent groups should not be marginalized, he says. Dr. Hargreaves is not confident by great narratives on ideologic battles. It's lot more than helpful to go off of great, valiant tongue and believe of these issues as creature related to social public health issues. Take a social public health attitude tool provided the information necessary, driving for headlines on growing extremist to believe on who is at hazard, wherever are they, which are the risks. He says the part of household, friends and communities is yet underestimated in politics circles, and superior use should be done of mild sectarian leaders. But he says reliant on stereotypes on extremist is a bad service to communities.